Chapter 27. Do this again. One more time. This is actually one of those 4 takes ones. Don't judge the hair. I had to go work in the yard to get to the right place. Okay, chapter 27. Could I bring somebody here? Maggie asked. For a visit, sort of. Somebody here, both dolls rose together. Mercy, Miss Christabel cried. But you must never do that, Timothy John said. Why not? We must never be seen, Timothy John answered, and his china hands clicked together. But you've been seen by me. That's different. You were the right one. But suppose someone else saw you, Maggie asked. What would happen? That would be quite dreadful, he asked. If we were seen, we would... Timothy John, Miss Christabel interrupted. No one must see us, she said, turning to Maggie, and both dolls fell silent. Look, Maggie said, after a long while. I've brought you something for the party. And she unfolded the little lace shawl. Mercy, Miss Christabel cried. A new tablecloth. How lovely. Look, Timothy John, a new cloth for the table. It's a shawl, Maggie corrected. A new shawl for the table, Miss Christabel said, to keep its shoulders warm. What a fine idea. Let's see if it fits. No, it's for you, Miss Christabel, Maggie said, to keep your shoulders warm, and she gathered the lace around Miss Christabel's neck and secured it with the brass tack. It's to wear to the party. Miss Christabel turned her head first to one shoulder and then to the other. A shawl, she said. How very splendid. With a little golden moon, Timothy John added, fingering the brass tack, to lighten up your chin, in case you can't find it in the dark. I brought something for you too, Timothy John, Maggie said, and she handed him the braided drapery fringe. Look, Miss Christabel, he exclaimed. Maggie has gotten me a new bell pull. What a useful thing to have. I can hang it on the wall and call you when we're in the garden. But we have no bell, Miss Christabel pointed out. That's what's so wonderful about it, Timothy John answered. It's a silent bell pull, for use at night when you don't want to wake anyone up. Thank you, Maggie. It's an admirable bell pull. It's a necktie, Maggie said, with a tie clasp to hold it together. See? Here's how it works. And she tied the braided fringe around his neck, connecting the ends with a paperclip. Timothy John tucked his chin in to look more closely. Lovely, he said. Quite lovely. A bell pull you wear around your neck, so you don't have to get up to ring it. It will go with your Sunday clothes, Miss Christabel commented. Sunday clothes? Maggie asked. What Sunday clothes? We both have Sunday clothes, Timothy John replied, but we haven't worn them yet because it never gets to be Sunday. It's always Wednesday. Where are they? What are they like? Let's get them out, Timothy John, and see how they look. They're in the chest, under the paper. Timothy John and Miss Christabel bent over the clothes chest, and together they lifted out small squares of linen until they reached a single layer of thin paper, stiff and crackly. Ah, there it is, Miss Christabel said, peeling the paper back and bringing forth a wrinkled black dress. My best silk. She held it up against her shoulders. Its long sleeves ended in white pleated cuffs. A row of tiny buttons started at the collar, proceeded down the front of the hem. It was like the dress everybody wore long ago, like the dress on the woman in the portrait, like the dresses in old-fashioned books, and it rustled when it shook. What happened to the bottom? Maggie noticed. It's all ragged. It's been burned. No, Miss Christabel replied. The part that's gone has been burned. The part that's here is perfectly good. But how did it get burned? It isn't burned, Miss Christabel replied. I just explained that. Do you think it still fits, Timothy John? She kicked out first one foot and then the other and behind its skirt. But Timothy John was busily removing a black wool suit from beneath the paper, and he didn't answer. Here's the waistcoat, he said instead, unfolding a sleeveless garment with smooth white buttons. And look, he cried, slipping his hand into a slim pocket, my gold watch, it's still here. He held a tiny gold disc on a chain and listened to it against his ear. It still says the right time, 8:35. That's not the right time, Maggie said. It's only about 4 o'clock. No, Timothy John answered, showing her the face. It says 8:35, the time we arrived. And look, Miss Christabel, here's the pants, beautiful as ever. But they're burned too, Maggie exclaimed, examining the cuffs. How did they get burned? Listen, Timothy John, Miss Christabel interrupted, and she shook her silk dress in the air. It still rustles. Do you remember how I used to rustle in my Sunday dress when I walked down the stairs? Maggie looked from one doll to the other. Down what stairs? You mean you used to go downstairs, she asked. To the rest of the house? A picture came into her now of Miss Christabel bumping down the center stairs of the big house below and rustling through its rooms, climbing into one of its chairs in the dining room, her head coming just to the edge of the table, standing at the open door of the refrigerator no taller than its bottom shelf, settling in a corner of the gray sofa, her legs stuck out straight before her, stiff in their little boots. Down what stairs? Maggie asked, but neither doll answered. Oh, what will you wear, Maggie? Timothy John asked instead. What are your Sunday clothes? What would she wear? I don't know, she answered. There was nothing in her closet but the clothes she wore to school. Maybe something nice in my hair, a flower or something. There's some flowers in the garden now. I could wear one of those. That would be nice, Timothy John said. Roses look just right in your hair. Let's pick one out now. No, I don't mean this garden. I mean the outside one, downstairs. Oh, downstairs. Timothy John sighed, and Maggie wondered if he, too, had wandered up and down the long corridors, looking in bedroom doors, the top of his hat no higher than a wastebasket. What about downstairs, she asked. But downstairs roses die, was all he answered. The party was less than 3 weeks away. Everything was ready, or almost ready. The ribbon streamers were all laid out. Maggie had cut one of Aunt Harriet's silk scarves into slender strips of shimmery red, and the cupcakes would come from next week's birthday lunch at school. The big present, the wonderful one, the surprise for Miss Christabel and Timothy John, was still to be gotten, but Juniper's gift, wrapped in a crayoned napkin, already lay alongside the little black key in her dresser drawer. She had gotten it just 2 days earlier from Barbara. Guess which hand, Barbara had said, coming up to Maggie in the schoolyard with her fists stretched out in front of her. Maggie had been standing alone near the fence, her back to the recess games. What? She asked. Guess which hand, Barbara had repeated, bringing her hands closer to Maggie's stomach. Which hand what? Which hand has the surprise, dummy? Pick a hand. Maggie contemplated the 2 rows of shiny knuckles. This one, she finally said, pointing to Barbara's left hand and stepping back quickly as if it might explode. Wrong, Barbara said, opened her fingers and displaying an empty palm. She put both hands behind her back. Try again, and she thrust her fists forward once more. This one. Wrong again, said Barbara, shuffled her hands behind her. Now try. This one. Maggie touched the same hand. It was probably a dumb trick. There really wasn't any surprise at all, and Barbara would continue to expose one empty hand after another. Right! Barbara unfolded her fingers one at a time, revealing a furled paper parasol, purple and red, across her palm. Maggie leaned over to look at it. What is it? What is it? What do you think it is? It's a parasol! My mother got it at this restaurant she went to. It's for you. I don't need it. I have 1 million of them. Maggie watched as Barbara spread open its toothpicked ribs. The thin paper unfolded like a butterfly wing. You can hook it so it stays open, Barbara said, showing her little latch that held the paper circle open. Watch it spin, and the purple and red flowers melted into a twirling magenta wheel as she twisted the handle against her thumb. It's nice, Maggie said, looking at it. It was nice. It could be for Juniper, she thought. She could prop it up in the patch of sunlight on the floor in the attic garden. He could lie under it in his basket, while Miss Christabel and Timothy John strolled among the wicker chairs and paper roses. It's just right, she said, and at last she received it into her own hand. The colors and everything. She, too, spun it, holding it in the sun and letting the light stain her fingers red, purple, red again. Just right for what? Barbara asked. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. Take to this party I'm going to? You're going to a party? Barbara looked up at her. Whose? Is it someone from this class? No. Then who? Nobody you know. And what's a parasol for? I don't know. It could be for a present or something. But it only costs about a penny. They give them away free at this restaurant my mother goes to. Who would want a present like that? We brought you something to wear to the party, Aunt Harriet said. Maggie hurriedly slammed the drawer containing Juniper's present, the little cupcake and candle, the slender black key, and spun around to the two aunts standing in the doorway of her room, a large flat box open, We've brought you something to wear to the party, Aunt Harriet said. Maggie hurriedly slammed the drawer containing Juniper's present, the little cupcake and candle, the slender black key, and spun around to the two aunts standing in the doorway of her room, a large flat box between them. What party? Wash your hands before trying it on, Aunt Harriet said, advancing into the room and laying the box on the bed. And don't hunch your shoulders. Poor posture ruins fine clothing. What clothing? What party? Maggie pressed her back to the dresser drawer. What party? She asked, her voice a croak. The party on the 14th. Stop working your teeth like that. You'll get gum boils. The party on the 14th? The dolls' party? How had they found out? How do you know about the party? We bought you an expensive dress, Aunt Harriet was saying, and we expect your conduct to do it justice. She picked at the twine around the box. Party dresses do nothing Party dresses do nothing to conceal disgraceful behavior. Wash your hands, Aunt Lillian said, and your face, too. There's something nasty on your cheek. The next moment, Aunt Harriet was lifting a dress from a snowbank of tissue paper, and Maggie caught her breath. Was this really for her? She had never seen anything so beautiful, and for a moment she forgot to wonder how her aunts had found out about the party in the attic. The dress was printed with tiny violets. A frill of cream lace trimmed the collar and bottom of each sleeve, and a purple velvet ribbon hung from tiny loops at either side of the waist. Maggie took it from her aunt's hand and held it up to her shoulders. Miss Christabel had done with her own best dress. As Miss Christabel had done with her own best dress, leaning down to see if the hem fell to the right distance from the floor, and reaching out against the skirt first with one foot and then the other. The next instant, her hands were pulled above her head, and the dress, the wonderful dress, was lowered over her shoulders. It sags at the waist, Aunt Lillian said, standing back and putting her hand to one side. The shoulders droop, Aunt Harriet said. The skirt is too long. Maggie looked up at them in alarm, wondering if they would take the dress away from her. It will have to do, Aunt Lillian said. There's no time to find another. The sleeves are too long, Aunt Harriet said. The lace will get into tea when she serves. Maggie stepped back against the dresser drawer again. How did they know about the party? How did they know about the tea? Had they found the cupcake and candle? Had they opened her drawer and seen the napkin and the parasol? Her heart stopped. Had they seen the key? What tea? She shouted. What party? Both aunts froze in front of her. Stop that shouting. If you're going to engage in improper behavior, you will be unfit to present to the members of the society, and there will be no party. What were they talking about? What society? The Health Society, Aunt Harriet said. You've been told about that. She spoke as though Maggie were deaf and could only read lips. Oh, that's on the 14th? That meeting? It's not a meeting. It's the society's annual party, and we're presenting you as an example of how good nutrition improves one's physical appearance. And behavior, Aunt Lillian put in. Maggie stared at them some more. That's what this dress was for? The Health Society meeting. There are socks too, Aunt Lillian said, and she drew out a pair of white knee socks, smooth and flat and curved perfectly at the calf. But we can't go ahead with our plans if you're going to disgrace us with infantile behavior. I thought you had outgrown your tantrums, Aunt Harriet said. And your impudence, Aunt Lillian added. They're at the door now. Hang the dress on a hanger, and don't handle it with unwashed hands, and fold the socks neatly. Wrinkled socks are unsightly. Maggie stood on the bed after they had left and stretched herself tall so she could see in the mirror to the bottom of the new dress. The hem fell too far below her knee, and the belt line hung loose on her waist. But she tightened the velvet ribbon, the wonderful velvet ribbon that rippled into pale streams when you draw your fingernail across its nap and felt like cat's ear against your lips. She stepped down to the floor and opened the dresser drawer, looking in at the party things. Aunt Harriet and Aunt Lillian hadn't found her out after all. The cupcake and candle were safe. Juniper's present was safe. The little black key was safe. And she had a Sunday best dress of her own to wear to the doll's party in the attic.